Hello and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Tiffany Storrs. Tiffany, welcome. Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I always like to start out with a little icebreaker question. Would you mind sharing with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
Yes, that's actually two things that I'm really loving right now is one is my word for 2025 is savor. So I'm making a conscious effort to really apply that to my daily life, like eating my breakfast, enjoying it, savoring each bite, and going through an email and really savoring the intention of it rather than just plowing through my inbox. Savoring a walk with my dogs, savoring a mountain bike ride on the trail, and listening to the sounds that my wheels make on the ground versus trying to catch up with the latest podcast and such. And just really being present, like the be here now movement is right up in that same savor alley. And then also, a kind of random thing, but mouth tape. It's been bringing me so much joy lately. Mouth tape. I don't know if that's something you've used, but it's designed to help improve sleep. And I was super resistant to it at first because I get claustrophobic, especially when there's a piece of tape over your mouth, but it's bringing me joy. So I had to share it.
Oh, that's so funny. I've not tried mouth tape, so that's very interesting that it does bring you joy. But I want to go back to the word savor. I just love that you have that word for this year. And, when I think of savor, I just think of like eating. And so I love how you're applying that to sort of everything. And like you said, yeah, it's about being present and really just enjoying what's happening in the moment. So I love that so much. All right. So now that we've gone through the first question, we're here to talk about coaching. So we're just going to dive right in. And I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing with us sort of your journey, your journey related to coaching and maybe a little bit about, where you've come from and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. The backstory is really interesting, and I'm going to put it in the condensed version of it to allow for this format. Essentially, I was born a hearing person, and I lived for 30 years in a normal hearing world. And once I started my family, when my husband and I got married, we had difficulty conceiving, so we went through fertility treatment. That took 4 years to be successful. And then after the birth of our first, I lost all my hearing on one side. And then after the birth of my second, I lost all my hearing on the other side. So currently I'm bilaterally deaf. And I know that sounds crazy because I'm able to speak so well, but I wear dual cochlear implants, which allows me to have this conversation with you right now. And so that whole change really gave birth to not only a new me, but a new purpose in this world. And I really saw myself transforming into an advocate and a motivational speaker. And I found myself being more and more demand for topics such as motivation and resilience, adaptability, cultivating awareness and cultivating resilience. And I have since then transitioned from a career in broadcast journalism to a full-fledged speaking, coaching career. And I'm also an author and an actor and a very intense advocate for hidden disabilities and heart health at large. And so it's kind of wild and wacky, my whole life journey, but that sums up the title of I wrote a book about my true story about losing my hearing as a new mom and really surrendering through that process. And the book is called Adaptability for a reason, in that we never really know just how resilient and strong we are until we're in an actual intense situation where we have no other choice but to be resilient and strong and adaptable. And I found myself being able to cope and adapt to major life changes. This all happened within a 2 to 3 year time period. And I surprised myself and I shocked myself with those abilities to adapt to such high speed change. And I came out of it reborn a warrior and wanting to share my strategies with others, because hearing loss or not, my story has helped people who are facing unbelievable challenges and life circumstances, change they didn't want. Change they didn't want. We all say we like change, but I think the truth is we like change. We just don't like change that is hard or that's unpleasant. And I'm here to share my story and be an example for how to cope with this unpleasant change, and learning to like it and learning to get along with it, because there's so much value and joy in that struggle. I always say this: struggle is the entry point of joy. That's when it starts. That's when it ignites. Like when there is struggle, when you're burdened, when you're overwhelmed, I'm happy for you. And I mean that in the most loving way, because I know that that struggle is there for a reason. It has so much purpose and so much intentionality. And just on the other side of that, you are this close to unexpected joy, awareness, and new beginnings. And I get excited about change now. And this is coming from someone who used to resist change too. I think we're human. We like what we know. We want to know what comes next. And I accidentally fell in love with change. And this all came with my hearing loss journey. And then in the process of losing my hearing as a new mom, I underwent surgery to receive a cochlear implant. And it was during that surgery that the doctors found that I had been living with a fatal heart arrhythmia that I would never have known. Like that would have never even been on my radar. No symptoms. It's called bradycardia. Long story short, 2 months after my cochlear implant was inserted, I had another surgery for a pacemaker. And you want to talk about shocking life change, like going from hearing to deaf and then having heart failure and coming back alive and more better than good. It was truly a rebirth and a radical transformation that I would have never seen coming. And I don't think we always need to know what's coming. In my case in particular, I'm glad I didn't. I think I would have got in my own way and wanting to figure out, well, how is this going to happen? How can I anticipate the change? What can I do? The truth is, we don't get to know all the time the how, the why, and the when. We just got to know and remind ourselves that we're capable of handling it, because change is the only constant that I know of. Like I always say, certainty is absurdity, because like constant certainty, where is that? That's unicorn thinking. That's Disneyland talk. It's never going to be that way. And I'm not saying we have to love setbacks, we have to love struggling, life has to be a grind. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm asking that we view it through a different lens. Like there is a spiritual assignment ahead of that struggle, and there is imminent growth and development that's just on the other side of that. And I get so excited when somebody shares their struggles, because I know something is right around the corner for them.
Yeah, I love, thank you so much for sharing your journey. What an amazing transformation from, the challenges that you experienced and how what you've created from that. And I love what you said around sort of like challenges are sort of that seed to the joy. Because you're right, nothing ever happens without a reason. There was reason, right? And your hearing loss resulted in them doing the surgery, which resulted in them finding the heart issue. Like that would have never happened. And where would you be today, or would you even be here today if that hadn't have occurred? So just the steps that brought you to where you are, and just the amount of, adaptability. I love that. That's the name of your book. That and resilience, that you had to create in your life to be able to overcome the challenges, and now how you help people really see sort of the joy that can come from the challenges that arise. I love that so much. So thank you so much for sharing all of that, and how you got to be where you are today. Um, I did want to focus a little bit more on that piece of joy, because I know you have a phrase, JOMO, and I'm super excited to hear more about this. So would you mind talking about JOMO for us?
Yes, I love sharing JOMO. Everyone needs to universally get a JOMO bumper sticker, and that is the joy of missing out, and versus FOMO, right? Which our society is hyper concerned about. Did I miss the party? Did I miss the invite? What if I don't go? And what I've been able to access through JOMO is something so serene and so sacred that I literally have come to believe that I was born to go deaf. And let me explain this, is that I've always been a really high sensory person, overstimulated easily with too much lights, to crowds, sounds, overstimulated so easily. And I didn't realize how much I needed the silence till I actually went deaf. And I started missing out on everything imaginable. And I was kind of liking it. And I'm not saying it was Christmas morning. It was definitely a hard adjustment and came with a lot of sacrifices. But I wouldn't trade my state of being, living in two different soundscapes, I mean, you couldn't pay me to restore my human hearing. I would not want it. I would not take it. And I'm not saying that to convince anyone, other than to share my true story of what has happened and how and why I feel this way now, is that being deaf, I get to miss out, and it's my superpower. For example, if I'm on an airplane and it's just too loud, kids are screaming, I just take that off. And I get to access this sacred cathedral-like silence anytime I choose. And I get the joy from that, the sanity, the peace that brings me. It's literally heaven. And so the JOMO, everyone says, oh, how did you lose your hearing? I would be terrified to do that. Tell me how it happened. They want to know how it happened, so that in the hopes it won't happen to them, and they're so terrified about that. And I'm like, look at me. Do I look down about this at all? The joy I'm able to have from unplugging, escaping to my silent retreat, and being so at ease and so comfortable with that missing out. Like, I'm having more joy missing out than I am trying to keep up. And I mean that. I live that. That is my super passion. And in fact, my kids have to chase me around the house when I'm not wearing my implants and they want to talk to me. They'll go look for them where I usually keep them. And sometimes I'll misplace them and put them in different spots. I don't want to be bothered. I am enjoying my JOMO so much, and then I can come back into the hearing world anytime I choose. And that is the beauty of a cochlear implant, and this superpower that I feel that I have. I feel like I'm a unicorn in that regard, that I could do that. And not all people can do that. So I really, really want to turn around this perception that setbacks, even a radical level of a setback, it's not meant to destroy you. There is such a hidden blessing and gems and development and growth on the other side. And I mean, I am ear to ear smiling and talking about how much more at peace I am now than I ever have been. So yes,
Yeah.
my
Wow.
JOMO, I think we can apply it to everything. And just take, for example, that Friday night invite that you thought you were going to get, it didn't happen, and really take that time for yourself and check in with yourself. Say, what have I not done for myself lately? Like, what is this fear coming from? Like, what can I do to restore my own balance, my own joy? It comes from within. So it's a healthy way to go about these overly busy and overly scheduled times.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing and explaining JOMO to us all. I love that concept of just unplugging, right, from the chaos of life, just all the sounds, all the busyness, all the, the invitations, the social activities, because oftentimes people do, they pile these things on and then they're overwhelmed and overstressed and they're wondering, why am I feeling this way? And it's oftentimes like you sort of do it to yourself because
Just
you don't
yourself.
know, right? Because you don't know how to say no. You don't want to be excluded, but it's not really. It's like you said, you're doing it for yourself. You're giving yourself that space. You're creating a space so that you can have that, time for yourself. And it goes back to just like self-care in general. Like people don't often prioritize that. And so they're running around with their heads cut off, right? Like chickens with their heads cut off. They're just like all over the place and stressed out all the time. And it's just that because they haven't taken the time to just stop and pause and take time for themselves and just, slow down and not do anything for a minute. So I love sort of that joy of missing out. And it's okay to not be participating in everything.
It is more than okay. And even if you can't access it with silence, like total silence, in my case, you can, I call it a golden hour. I encourage my kids and my mom to do this all the time too, is that just set an hour of silence for yourself. Just set a timer and check in with yourself, see what you're missing and fill your bucket that way. For me, it is total silence from an auditory perspective, but sometimes it could just be turning off our screens for an hour,
Mm,
or getting silence can come in many different forms. And the joy that I think it's an underappreciated art, the art of silence needs to
mm,
return so we can refocus, because we're, like you said, we're in a consumer culture. We're bombarded with requests for our attention, and my gosh, it is just fatigue on the brain to keep up.
mm,
And so this JOMO and accessing silence is the ultimate self-care routine that I have, that
mhm.
it's free, anyone can adopt that. And to see how radical, like the level of joy you can, it's measurable too. Try it for an hour tomorrow and just see how much better you feel after 1 week. I guarantee you it's 100%.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so audience is gonna test that out and see how they feel about it.
And get back to me
Um,
about that. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Put some comments about how that works. All right. So one of the other pieces I did want to touch on, because I know this is something that you're passionate about speaking about as well, is just raising awareness for hidden disabilities. Because, before you even mentioned it to me, I had no idea. And, I shouldn't, I mean, it's not something that would come up or like anybody would guess, but just to raise awareness and sort of normalize people's disabilities when it's not completely obvious, right, visually. And so would you mind maybe sharing a little bit about sort of the awareness raising that you do, the work that you do to sort of bring this awareness to people, to the world, and sort of how you work to normalize that?
Oh, I'd love to. This is just lights me up talking about this, because as I've gone from, like I mentioned before, a
Hmm.
hearing to a now deaf person, I'm a hybrid. And I know what life was like in a hearing world, and I know what life is like in deaf world. That's why I feel super qualified to explain my position and how there's a huge gap and there are misunderstandings between the two. And disability at large is an interesting topic because we tend to associate disability with something that we need to visually see: a wheelchair, a cane, a walking device, a prosthetic limb. And hidden disabilities can be very dangerous because they're often not validated and underdiagnosed, and the believability of a hidden disability is really concerning societally. I remember when I was first losing my hearing, there were numerous people in my life, unfortunately, that had doubted my claim, saying, well, I know you're busy acting and writing your books and all your things. Could it be just that you're tired and being maybe dramatic about it? Really, I want to make this up. This like, how that's so crazy that someone would even feel that position. Surely it should be enough just to tell someone I'm losing my hearing, I'm going deaf. Like, to have to prove that was so insulting at times. And that's what really lit me up in terms of an advocacy platform, was that I realized it's not just the hard of hearing folks. There's so many people living with hidden disabilities. 80, one of my best friends, she struggles with a mental disorder that is so disabling, and yet I hear people come up to her all the time and say, you look so good. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. And then I know another friend of mine who has Lyme's disease. And again, the believability of that, because we can't see it, goes underrated. And it's so unfair, because then what happens is it turns the proof onto the disabled person. And trust me when I say they're already doing everything they can to stay up to speed and participate. And so hidden disabilities in particular need so much more visibility because they're overlooked. That's just the truth of it. And even from an acting perspective, I can tell you that when I see a casting for disabled people and I submit to it and I find out that I was knocked out because I didn't look disabled enough, or it's just, the insult is beyond personal, because people are judging, saying, oh, well, we can't see your disability. It's not real. It's not believable. And that is just a sick mentality. So I have been very strong in my advocacy piece, not only through Cochlear Americas, which makes the implants, but just in my community and nationally and internationally as well, writing articles about hearing health awareness, bringing light to hidden disabilities at large. I love sharing my story. I love giving informational talks. I don't like scaring anyone. That's never my point, but people are always first to ask, how did you lose your hearing? Because they just don't want it to happen to them. So I love offering education pieces just about hearing health. I'm actually not surprised that our society knows so little about hearing health. They only really care when they're losing it, but there's so much preventative hearing health information that is out there that I know I was just put on this planet to be a light and be a face and be a voice about. And I think it is a huge privilege to have the attention of people who are listening, who are interested in my story and the conversation, and how how I continue to stay positive through it all, because we need more of that. I think our society is really, we're we've reached a certain poverty level of role models and leaders and people going before us. And I just continually want to be a change maker, a mover, a shaker, an inspiration, and a light.
Oh, well, you are very inspiring and you are a bright light. And I'm just like shocked to hear that there are so many people that doubted, like couldn't believe that it was happening. It just because they couldn't see it. That just like surprises me. I'm just like a little bit shocked about that because I'm like, well, why wouldn't people believe you if you were saying something was happening to you? It's just a little bit, and I think, and I don't know if part of it is because I hear a lot about sort of female other female issues, right? Where they're like people don't believe that these conditions or whatever it is that women are experiencing are real because for the longest time, women's health hasn't been right, sort of at top of mind that, women's bodies are very different. Like even things like a heart attack, like people don't understand and know that female symptoms for that are so different that they don't even know it's happening because they're not aware. Like a lot of women don't even know what the signs of a heart attack are because they only know what the signs are in a male, and it's completely different, right? Those are all the examples of where female health is so different, and there's not a lot of awareness around it.
Oh, absolutely. A heart attack is a perfect example of that. It's not
Hmm.
discussed enough. It's not given enough attention. An equal measure to it is menopause. I feel
Mm,
culturally we have not given it. Just now we're starting, and we still have such a long ways to go, but it's finally getting the ounce of recognition and understanding that it deserves. I mean, back in the day, if you would have told me I was going to enter menopause, I would have said, like, what'd you call me? A menopause? Like, I wouldn't, like, the lack of education, it was so obvious. And now we're finally getting up to speed, and we're bringing awareness to this. And we've come this far, but we didn't come this far just to come this far. We've got to keep going.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely more room to go still. But yeah, I love what you mentioned about menopause because you're right. It has been one of those things that hasn't been talked about. But I see it a lot more, people talking about it these days and perimenopause as well, because people just used to think it was just menopause. But now there's this whole, there is a perimenopause period and what that is. And so there is a little bit more awareness. It's getting louder. But and I don't know if that was tied to sort of the doubts that people had because you were a woman. I don't know if it would have been the same if you had been a man, right? So
True. It is sad, and I'm working to help educate people
Mhm.
on the fallacy of that. If you can't see, it's not there. Like, who
Yeah.
who are we to discount someone's disability, visible or not? And
Hmm.
surely it should be enough to tell somebody you're living with a certain condition, and we should accept each other and embrace that truth, and honor the story and the vulnerability that comes along with that share.
Yeah. So I love the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing your story and just the work the advocacy that you're doing to bring this to light, to have people, understand that there are disabilities that exist out there that aren't visible and that they are real and that and people do need to be acknowledged. So, thank you for being with me today. I do want to start to wrap up, but before we wrap up today, I just want to open it up for you to share any message that you'd like with our audience. Is there any additional message, words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us today?
My favorite takeaway is the reminder that if you're struggling, life is hard for you right now, like, it's only hard until it's easy. I always say that it's only hard until it's easy. And how you put that into practice is you take what is hard in your life. Is it finances? Is it learning a language? And you surrender to it and you immerse yourself, and through repetition and practice, it gets easier and easier. You know, pilots aren't just born. That, like, I love using the pilot example. They go through, we're so fascinated with how you fly a plane. Yeah, that's, somebody had to learn how to do that. And it was hard until it was easy. So I want to remind everyone and anyone who's out there struggling, wondering how they're going to get through something that feels really heavy, that feels really hard. And we're going to take one baby step forward at a time and really look at the struggle, look at the problem. I think once you look at it and accept it, it starts to lose its power and its hold that it had over you, because now you're aware of it and you can make friends with it. You don't have to like it, but it's okay to not be okay, just to make peace with it and make friends with it. And then we can start solving, because at the end of the day, we are equally hardwired to solve, and we're hardwired to change. And it is our own adaptability that increases through every change we encounter. The struggles and the setbacks, I say this again and again and again, are there for a purpose. They're meant to help increase our adaptability, which long term helps to increase our survivability. So please look at the next new challenge you're facing it through that lens, and surprise yourself with how you can handle it, because I know you can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that message. I love that message. It's always, people often see challenges as just roadblocks and they don't see their way around it, but really it is the beginning. Like just going back to the beginning of our conversation, where it's the seed to get to the joy by working through it, overcoming it, and solving whatever it is that's the challenge. How elevated you become afterwards, how elevated your skills are, how elevated you become as a person, and who that new person is that you then get to walk out into the world with, is going to be amazing. So thank you again, Tiffany, for being with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Amanda, so much, and for what the wonderful work you're putting out into the universe.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace, Balance, Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.